Good afternoon. I'm Steve Bassnett, and I would like to welcome everyone on behalf of CANASA and Security Canada to today's online learning session. I would like to say a special thank you to Panasonic Canada Incorporated for their support and for sponsoring today's session. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Zoran and Rui of Panasonic Canada. Zoran is Panasonic's National Solutions Manager. With more than 28 years of experience in the industry, Zoran is well-versed in collaborating with dealers and end customers in creating security systems regardless of their complexity. Rui is Panasonic's National Technical Product Manager. He has a broad depth of experience ranging from advising dealers on complexities related to existing multi-vendor security systems to designing and creating custom products with end customers. Feel free to type any questions you may have during the session into the Q&A window at the bottom of your screen, and they will respond during the Q&A portion roughly 20 minutes from now. I will now turn the session over to Zoran and Rui. Welcome back, guys, and thanks for being here.
Okay, great. Thanks, Steve. Good afternoon, everyone. And thanks to you all for taking some time out of your day to be with us today. As Steve said, I'm Zoran. With me is Rui. We are part of the Panasonic Canada team. We're both based out of the Greater Toronto area, excuse me. We're going to take turns presenting today, just to give you a little different voice as we go along. So with that said, let's get started. We're aiming for about 30 minutes, so we're not going to keep you here too long, but we're going to cover a lot of information. So we'll get started from here. So today's agenda, the iPRO S-Series AI camera roadmap, why AI or what is AI? Our new S-Series value proposition, and as Steve said at the end, we're going to open it up for a Q&A. What I'm going to ask Rui here to do is play this quick video. It's a minute long, and then I'll provide a summary at the end. Okay, so what we're going to be showing you today is based around the line at the very end, reactive versus proactive. For those of us that have been around a while and remember back to the early days of DVRs or even time-lapse recording, back then end users needed full-time staff to manage all the data. It was very difficult, scouring through hours of video, using the rewind and fast forward buttons, trying to find a person or when an event took place. It was painful back then. What we're going to cover today is through analytics and artificial intelligence, we've knocked that old, slow, painful way of searching down to literally seconds. And we're going to show some slick demo video clips of this in the upcoming slides. So this is the iPRO step story. This is our 3 tiers of camera product, the Panasonic iPRO step story. The U series, fairly new product line. This is a cost-effective line, mostly fixed cameras. Really meets that very competitive space. The next one is the X series. That's our top tier line. This is when you're getting into 5 megapixel or 4K cameras. We introduced an AI line last year that fell in under the X series of cameras as well. And then in the middle is for those of you that have been around Panasonic and use our product, the S series is sort of the full lineup, the full day-to-day line. It's got the H.264, the H.265, full audio. It has the pre-installed CA certificate, so that'll prevent things like hacking and data leakage and things like that. That's all part of the S and X lineup. So for AI, what we're presenting here is now in the S series as well. So this is the new roadmap, the new S series roadmap. Starting in the top left, you can see domes and bullets that are coming out very shortly, and then more towards the end of the year, early January. Below that, the 5 megapixel fisheye and the 4K fisheye, same time frame around December. Interesting to note, if you look under January, you'll see the G at the end of the part number. What that denotes is the picture on the left. We're going to be introducing cameras painted black. Our factory's done some research, and there's a call for aesthetic reasons. There's calls for cameras painted black. So that's the first time we'll be jumping into this arena. So look for that to be coming out sometime in January. And then to the far right, Rui's going to cover these in details, but the plugin that's pre-installed in these cameras is AI video motion detection and AI people. Then there's free AI vehicle detection and AI face detection, and also AI privacy guard. You know, you hear a lot about AI, through the media. It's a lot of times it's brought up in various forms. A lot of times it's not so not in a positive light. But we think this quote sums it up nicely as it relates to our business. AI should augment human intelligence, not replace it. People and AI both bring different abilities and strengths to the table. So I think that sums it up nicely. Why do you need AI? 4 reasons: maximize budgets and control expenses, increasing privacy regulations, time is critical in locating persons of interest, and you can't watch everything. And we're going to break it down in the next slide before I turn it over to Rui. So the security need, you can't watch everything. I've covered that. AI VMD takes us to a more proactive approach, easily finding intruders and loiterers and people like that. The next one is time is critical in locating persons of interest. We live in a world of active situations. So under the old way, as I mentioned earlier, it's extremely difficult to even identify and then try and follow an active situation, virtually impossible. With today's technology, you have an easier and faster way to search, and it's based on parameters that you set, okay? The next one is maximize budgets and control expenses. This simply covers how far we've come with edge technology. Key features are now at the camera. The early days of IP, it was usually an expensive software plugin. We're mentioning smart coding here, which is listed. That's our edge feature that drastically reduces your bandwidth and storage needs, which in turn reduces the need for additional servers as well. And the last one, increasing privacy regulations. The AI privacy guard is a really nice new feature that Rui's going to show some live video clips on how we can guard the privacy of a person, but still capture what's going on in the background. So I'll leave that to Rui for his piece. And I think this is where I pass it over to you, Rui.
Yeah, thanks, Zoran. So Zoran just mentioned that the AI VMD is one of the pre-installed applications on the camera. So what AI VMD differs from our regular video motion detection is basically as the analytic and the ability to differentiate between vehicles or a motorcycle or humans from any other object moving, like trees swaying or animals passing by, in order to have a more accurate alarming and prevent those false alarms. So in the AI VMD, there's kind of like 4 detection methods you can use. So one of them is the loitering detection. So one example here I'll show is the loitering detection that is set up specifically for cars. So if people are walking by or any other object walking by, it won't detect it as the loitering. So you see here, somebody's dropping off somebody in a car. They walk through that zone that was highlighted. There'll be no alarm. Walks in, no problem. Then along will come another car, and they'll park in that no parking zone. And this kind of application is used a lot in like airports or in front of important buildings where vehicles should not park for security reasons. And you can set the time of which the alarm will activate. So as you can see here, as soon as it detects a vehicle, it will output that alarm. Again, this is all done on the edge. The other section of that is your typical intruder detection. So our cameras are very flexible and creating kind of like a polygon area. So you can uh, create a very detailed area of the area that you want to have the alarm. As you can see here, somebody's just trying to take a selfie at the very old statue at a museum. And, anybody outside that area did an alarm. So this, before any damage or anything like that is done, the guard was able to react and correct the situation. With cross-line detection, same kind of idea. So we've set this to cross-line in the middle there, so somebody can't just walk underneath those ropes. But there's a specific direction. So you see somebody walks through there, no big deal. Watch for the guy in the blue jacket on the right there. He doesn't want to wait in line, and he feels like he's just want to do something else. And again, we specifically set this to detect humans walking under there and not any other objects, or if there was a piece of paper or something flying through there, it wouldn't activate the alarm, right? And similar type of idea with vehicles. So in this case, it's vehicles going the wrong way. As you can see, this is a parking lot. So you might have actually people walking up the ramp to walk to their cars or whatnot. But we're not so concerned with that in this situation. We just care about people going the wrong way in their vehicles. And there you go, right? So if you have rules set up in the VMS and you have the cameras kind of detecting
Panasonic
specific
Business.
things like that, you can then set that right on with the iVMD, which is one of the pre-installed applications. One of the new features that was added to the kind of offering from our AI cameras that we released last year and have made their way into those as well, but we'll release with the S series, is something called AI sound classification, right? So just to add to Zoran's speech a little bit earlier, it says you can't watch everything, you also can't hear everything, right? So built in right into the camera is an algorithm that can actually detect the gunshot sounds or yelling or screaming, vehicle horns. So if it was in a traffic situation or a parking lot where people are getting angry at each other, they start honking the horn. And of course, the old breaking glass. So if there's break-ins and that sort of thing. And it's important to note here that there's different privacy laws in different jurisdictions across Canada, and there's also within individual companies there's specific policies in place, whether not allowing or only allowing audio recording in specific cases. So I just want to note here that for the analytics to work, the audio track or does not need to be recorded as part of like the video stream that is actually recorded. So the analytics is just using the microphone to listen for certain sounds, and then they're outputting some metadata just like the visual analytics, and not actually having to record that sound. They're just sending out alarming data. And one other thing to note is not all the cameras have built-in microphones, and in most cases that is the preferred method, because if you mount the camera in the corner of a room, you don't necessarily want to monitor sound at that corner of the room because maybe the camera has really high zoom and you want to zoom into the middle of the room. So that allows you to run an external microphone into the mic input of the camera and actually place the mic where the sound is actually going to be most effective in listening for those kind of sound cues for the alarm. Some new application updates, and I'm sorry that actually, I'm kind of disappointed that we still have to talk about this. Looking back to March of 2020, we thought this was going to be a 2-week shutdown, but we're still talking about these kind of important analytics, this AI occupancy detection and non-mask detection, right? So these are now available and they can be loaded on the AI cameras. So if you still have an application, and we're still in this kind of situation here in Ontario and in Canada and globally, where you have these kind of applications, we have now AI occupancy detection, so it can detect specific if there's too many people in a specific space, and also if somebody is not wearing a mask. And again, once the data goes into the VMS, you can activate many different rules. The example here is using an IP speaker to kind of make an announcement or a pre-recording saying, please put on your mask and that sort of thing, or maybe don't allow anybody else into the area. And I know you're probably thinking this is probably like a temporary update and you might not want to put it on the camera. So what we've done, this is not only just another camera, it's also a platform. And we kind of put this images on the left here just so you can kind of relate it to something that we all do every day. We all go to the App Store or the Google Play Store, and we all load apps or whatever the new app is, whether it's the vaccine passport or something else. there's always every day there's a new app that we're loading, and then we kind of find out that maybe we don't need these apps anymore after a couple of years or a couple of months, and we just end up deleting it. The camera itself, these AI cameras are a platform. So if you find that the pre-installed analytics is not something you want to use, you can remove one of them and put the one that you want. If in case you put the mask detection or the occupancy detection, which you might only be using for the next 6 months or a year, if you want to make room for something else after you no longer need them, you can just delete them from the camera and then you can load something else. And not just our plugins. So the ones we're going to talk about today is the kind of iPRO plugins, but there's also many third-party plugins available that are already compatible with these cameras. And Zoran talked about the people search at the beginning. So we're going to show you here what that search that that can be done in seconds, that doesn't have to rely on the video scrubbing anymore like in the old days. So in this particular case here, we're looking for a person, and I believe it's orange pants and black shirt, or maybe the opposite. Very unique set of parameters. So we can click on there. So this interface here is on our Video Insight. This is also available on the Genetec Security Center as well. Okay, and it's important to note that all this metadata and all those thumbnails are being captured by the camera. So there is no server that is actually doing any analytics. It's all done on the edge on the AI processor on the camera. So you can see it comes up with some results for your search, and then once you click on it, then you can basically have your video right there. And once you have the video found, then you can do all the other things that you were used to doing when we find a clip of interest. You can clip the video, bookmark it, that sort of thing, and use the full capabilities of whatever VMS you happen to be using. And we talked a lot about just AI when it comes to analytics, right? With our product, we don't necessarily just use the AI for analytics. One of Zoran's 4 points that he made earlier was controlling budgets and expenses. So the other method that we're using AI, we've all heard of, we had previously something called smart coding, which would analyze the entire image and kind of adjust the bit rates or the compression of the image based on what all the movement and that sort of thing, right? AI takes it to the next level where you're now analyzing the movement. What is in the movement? Is it a person? Is it a vehicle? Or is it just leaves blowing in the wind? And if it is something of interest, like a person or a vehicle, it will actually properly encode that. And if it is leaves blowing in a tree, it will kind of compress that a little bit more to save you that bit rates and bandwidth. I'll show you a quick video here. So you can see on the left, you have the one without AI smart coding, and on the right is one with AI smart coding. So you can see very significant difference. And again, on the left, no AI smart coding. On the right is smart coding. You can probably see the tree moving in the wind there. Okay, so not only for analytics, but it's used for like the everyday. So if you don't use any analytics whatsoever, the AI is already being used to kind of control the compression and bit rates of the camera based on what it's looking at. And Zoran also touched on this earlier. So you might be thinking, why would we want something like AI Privacy Guard, where we want to mask out people in the image? Like, after all, we are a surveillance industry, right? So surveillance doesn't also mean, something like criminal or that sort of thing. There are many companies that are actually already using this feature, primarily in manufacturing, right? Of course, none of us would actually like to sit at our desk and have a security camera watching us work and that sort of thing. And a lot of companies have like organized labor unions that actually prevent those sort of things from happening, and rightfully so. So what this gives you is the company can actually watch a process without actually identifying any individuals in the image, and then the employees can feel that they're not, nobody's using the video to kind of judge performance or kind of evaluate them and that sort of thing. So you can actually watch and it does this in real time. So, and you could do it two ways. You can blur out the entire person, or you can blur out just the face, right? So as you can see, this is a factory setting here. So somebody can watch the process and make sure nothing's gone wrong. This is really popular, like in, bulk mail facilities or sorting plants where conveyor belts and that sort of thing. Machinery needs to be watched constantly, but you don't necessarily need to keep an eye on the people, right? And I'll also note here that This can be configured, like it's highly tunable, so you can use it a couple different ways. You can have it set, all the streams have this kind of blurring effect or privacy effect, or you can have one stream that records the completely unmasked image and another stream that has the blurred image. So depending on what your application is, this is highly tunable. And because it's also done right at the camera and it streams out this way, regardless of what VMS you're using. So even in an ONVIF situation, you can use this because it's already done it, and it's done pre-encoding or pre-transmission at the camera side. And so where does that take us? What's involved in this kind of the AI search and the people search and all that? So traditionally, if you're having analytics, you'd have your image, your camera's providing the image and the output, and then you'd have a bunch of servers or PCs kind of doing the analytics and kind of mulling over that data and kind of interpreting all of that. The way the new iPRO AI works is that we're taking advantage of the edge processing power. So you can see some of the cameras, you can load up to 3 apps, some of the cameras up to 2 apps, and all the cameras doing all the analytics is collecting all that metadata, and it's sending it to the same hardware as your VMS recording. So for the most installations, depending on the amount of cameras you have, you can use the same server that you are running your VMS on. If you have an incredibly large installation, we also have a solution for that as well. But as I said, the majority of situations, you're going to have maybe less than 100 AI cameras. You most likely can use the same hardware that your VMS is already running on it without any additional hardware investment. And I think I'll hand it over to Zoran now for the why iPRO.
Okay, thanks, Rui. So I'm gonna close it off here. So why choose iPRO AI? We are leading in AI surveillance technology development. Panasonic iPRO has the most AI-enabled cameras, and apps are fully interchangeable, all the apps that Rui just showed you. And wide open platform, endless third-party integration. Connect with us, and we'll talk about making other apps work that you might have a call for, and free iPRO design plugins as well. The next one is where we talk about low total cost of ownership solution. This is where we talk about our Video Insight VMS. This is something we've presented in the past. It's a VMS platform that has a simplified license structure and no SMA or SUP yearly or quarterly fees of any kind. And Rui mentioned earlier, no additional server required for the AI plugins as well. The last one is, of course, Panasonic iPRO, a trusted brand for more than 60 years. Very low failure rates, high reliability. We have full 5-year warranty, and the secure communications I discussed that earlier. That's the SSL certificate that protects against hacking and data leakage. That's standard with our S and X series cameras. And then we always get asked integration. What products does these cameras work with? So on the VMS side, right now we're working. The first one is Panasonic iPRO. That's our Video Insight platform, full integration, as you can see, fully integrated to Genetec as well, right across the board. And currently in talks with Milestone, and that should be done in short order as well. So some flexibility on the different types of platforms you can use. You can use these cameras and their features on. Okay, so our factory does a very good job keeping the designers and the installers in mind. The first one you're looking at here, this is our new system design tool. It's cloud-based, it's free, there's no downloads or anything like that. What this tool does, it allows you to upload a map or a drawing of whatever location you're designing and position camera icons where you want to mount them on the map. It will come back and actually show you the image quality of each camera. And now we'll tell you if you're in a usable AI range as well. Reach out to Rui or myself if you'd like a quick run through. This is a really nice new tool when designing a new system. The next one is easy kitting. So a lot of installers like to take their 40 cameras into their own warehouse and pre-program them before they get onto the job site. So that would involve opening the box of every camera, pull the camera out, plug it into your laptop, program it, and then put it back in the box, and then have fun repackaging the box. Easy kidding, as you can see in the window there, there's a little perforated door at the side of each box. You just punch that in, and your connection is right there. You plug in your cable, you do your programming, and close the box. Off you go. So huge savings in time for your tech if you want to pre-program it. So it covers programming your camera. It also covers installing your apps. Do it all through a tiny door at the side of the box. The iPRO configuration tool, that's a tool that already exists. Techs use it for quick camera batch configuration, meaning if you have 20 cameras that are going to be all pre-programmed the same, rather than programming each camera individually, batch configuration will allow you to program them on one shot. Makes it a lot quicker for your installer. It's also used for firmware upgrades as well. But now you can also use the iPRO configuration tool to easily load in apps as well. So that's available for your installer as well. And finally, great accessories. We had some holes in our mounts previously, but we've really addressed some new pendant mounts, some really slick wall mounts. We have nice back boxes that instead of putting a camera into an electrical box, you put into this nice back box that matches the color and the shape of the mount in front of it. Has areas to hide your cable and things like that. So great new accessories that we'll get you familiar with when we start quoting this product. We're coming close towards the end. As far as resources go, we have a program. We're calling it our S-Series Seed program. If you're an end user, or you're an integrator that knows an end user that might want to try one of these cameras and get up to speed on the camera and the AI function, scan the flow code there, and there'll be information sent to you on how we can get you a unit for free to try and keep it at your customer's location, and test it, take a look at it, see how you like it. And if you need help, you contact myself and Rui, and we'll do a quick 10-minute breeze through on some of the functionality. So if you want to get a camera to try, reach out to us, and we'll get one shipped out to you. There's also an AI instructor-led training. It's an online training, geared around techs. Again, reach out to us, and we can get you login information so you can get your techs up to speed on how to use this and how to program it. I think that brings us to the end. So hopefully you've all found what we presented informative. As mentioned, reach out to myself or Rui for any information that we provided. I think on the next slide, you'll see our contact info. Is that right, Rui? I think. Yep, there it is. So thanks again for spending some time with us today. Thanks to Steve and the Canasa team for hosting us. And let's move ahead and open it up to some questions.
Thanks, guys. That was great. If anybody has any questions, please type them into your Q&A window now. We had a couple come in partway through, so these might have been addressed, but I'm going to throw them at you guys anyway. Does it work with Milestone VMS?
Yeah, so there was a chart there, and I believe you will get a copy of the recording as well, so you can refer back to it. So it will, right now, the iVMD that I described will work with Milestone VMS. Of course, you have to have the device packed to a certain level. But in terms of the multi-AI, we are working with Milestone right now, and we expect that in sometime in early 2022.
Thank you. How will it integrate with existing VMS?
So that would be again, you would refer to that chart. So as we progress, so this is the multi-AI I think was released on July 1st. So right now we have Milestone in the works, and we have Video Insight and Genetech fully compatible. So if you're looking at an existing VMS, you can reach out to myself and Zoran, and then we'll we'll qualify what VMS you're using. And if you do have a special applications, of course, we're not opposed to that. Then we do with that all the time. So if there's something that is a specific project and you need some specific analytic integrated, again, we'll work with you on that as well. So the only information we'd need then is just what VMS you're using and the version and that sort of thing.
Great, thank you. Okay, how many plugins can be installed and run on the X series and S series cameras?
Good question. So the X series that we released last year, because it's in the higher tier, You can run up to 3 plugins or analytics there, or apps, we can call them now. And then the S series can run up to 2. And the reason I'm saying up to 2 is basically whether they're iPRO developed applications or they're third-party developed applications, we don't restrict any developer to specific resources of the processor or RAM or ROM or that sort of thing, right? So what we do is we basically, if somebody wants to develop one application that uses the entire resources of the AI, they can also do that. So in that case, if you have one that uses the entire resources of either the S series or the X series camera, then you could run just that one. But we actually have kind of application slots on the X series for up to 3 and the S series for up to 2.
Great, thank you. Do they work with March?
Currently, no. So just the ones on the, I'm assuming you meant March Networks. Is the So currently only the ones listed on the chart there at the launch. So that was this month. But we are working with other integrators, and it all depends on some if the VMS itself has the ability for us to integrate that. So again, if you have, that's what you're using right now, and you see this our cameras being beneficial to your install, just myself reach out to myself and Zoran, and we'll work with you to see if that's feasible or not.
Okay, thanks. Next up, is there an API for custom integrations with third-party software?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a kind of like an SDK program for the AI. So if you, I don't know if you scan that code, but you'll get the presentation after. So on our global site, so security.panasonic.com, you'll see a list of already current third-party applications that you can load on these cameras. And every one of those developers had gone through what's called our SDK program. So basically, you'll sign up for this program and you'll get all the information, how the AI processor is working, the structure, software structure, and that sort of thing. So yes, there is an API SDK for this so that you can develop your own applications.
Great, thank you. Do you have any COVID-19 management specific plugins?
So to date, just the 2 that we mentioned. So the one being the non-mask, or the trigger if somebody's not wearing a mask, and then the other one is the occupancy detection. So those are new as of I think it's just the end of August. So those are all available right now. If somebody has an AI camera, wants to use an AI camera, we can plug those in right now. So just those 2.
Okay, thanks. Looks like we have a few more questions than time, so I'm going to hit you with one more, and then just so everybody knows, I'll pass your questions along to Zoran and Rui after, and they'll get back to you directly. So our last question, how does the iPRO multi-AI server search functionality work? Is it a server purchase required to run it?
So the if you're using, so typically we say if you're using under 100 AI cameras, you can run the what we call the multi-AI server, which is just a piece of software that can run on the same hardware or server as the VMS is running. So whether you have, let's say you have an installation of Video Insight, an installation of Security Center from Genetec, you can load this multi-AI server, this management tool, into the same piece of hardware, right? Basically, it just contains, it's not doing any analytics, it's just containing a database and those small little thumbnails so that the client can actually search for it, right? All the analytics and all that other stuff is done on the edge. The only time you would actually need a separate piece of hardware or a separate server is if you have a really large installation. So over 100 cameras, maybe between 100 and 300 cameras, you would probably want to, or if you have like maybe 10 different servers in different locations, you probably want to, instead of spreading this out, you probably want to centralize it in one piece of hardware. We do have a turnkey solution that is not like super expensive, and you can basically, it can reside on one if you have a large installation. But like I said, for the most part, the goal of this is to be installable into the same server that is running the VMS.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the end of today's session. Thanks everyone for joining us. And once again, thank you to Zoran and Rui and to Panasonic Canada for their support. We look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, be well.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.